The wellness culture is piling on the craziest list of things that you have to do and eat. Really, the simplicity is just be present. Like actually be in your body in harmony with nature, because we are part of nature. And when we are not with our breath, when we are reverse breathing and our diaphragm is stuck, and we're not in congruency with the design of our body, of our nature, and we're basically fighting ourselves.
Hi, I'm Sarah Schmidt. I'm 52 years old, and I can honestly say that I have never felt better. For the first 50 years of my life, I navigated some pretty fucking hard things that I like to call my Holy Schmidt moments. They include things like being diagnosed with cancer, navigating my sexuality, adopting children, two divorces, losing my dad, and having a biological child in my 40s. After decades of some really, really hard work, I have fallen deeply in love with myself and my life. Turns out that embracing the magic and the expansion that comes with getting older, it isn't a bad place to start. I'm here to prove that life doesn't have to decline with age. In fact, it gets a whole lot better. On Holy Schmidt, we are going to dive into my curiosities around wellness and longevity and mindset, and we are going to do it with really vulnerable, thoughtful conversations with people that I really love and admire. This season, we are going to celebrate and honor growth and transformation and find profound beauty in connection. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to Holy Schmidt. I am very, very excited to share this episode with you. As we think about all the pillars of the stress kit, and we've talked about so many, I've emphasized over and over how important each one is. Today's episode is no different. Today, we are going to talk about breath. The power of our breath, the importance of breathing. I've learned this lesson over and over again in my life, caught myself in moments where I just haven't taken a deep breath in too long. I then experience the dysregulation that follows. Today, I want to introduce you to my friend, Megan Dun Krauss, who is an amazing yoga instructor and breathwork teacher. Megan has taught me how to reconnect with my breath and how to reclaim it and my power in not just difficult moments, but just daily, everyday life. So I invite you to listen in with a curious ear to understand all the ways in which our breath is truly our life force and how it often holds the key to the peace and the calm and the ease and the joy that we so seek in our lives. Megan, I am so excited that we have found the time to have this conversation. This feels really strange that we're talking to each other on a computer because You're literally a few miles away.
I know. We should be sitting having tea together.
So I know you so well, but there's lots of people listening that have no idea who you are. Who's Megan Dun Krauss?
Who is Megan Dun Krauss?
And what does she do in the world? And why are we talking today?
Well, let's see. First, I'm a curious human that loves movement and loves the breath. Really, I would say it started at a young age where I was just just really curious about the pauses, the unseen world. I would go off into no man's land and be staring off into space, and my mom would be like, "Earth to Megan." But I do think it eventually led me to just be curious in the body, in life, in the unseen world. I teach yoga, basically, but I started doing that from college. I got really curious. I was a kinesiology, pre-med psychology student, and I did an apprenticeship with an amazing man in the Alexander technique, which is really subtle work. Postural work, breathing work, really subtle movements. And I saw him take an older gentleman from a completely hunched over posture to upright in a matter of 6 months. And I was like, but he didn't really do anything. I mean, he wasn't making him do big stretches or doing, and I was just blown away and so curious of what was he actually doing. But I think it started my journey of ooh, I want to do that kind of movement. I want to be helping people in wellness and myself and helping others feel good in their bodies and be connected. So I sort of abandoned the pre-med route, working at a holistic medical center in Evanston, the Moreau Center of Integrative Medicine with Dr. Connie Catalani, Frank Scott, acupuncturist. It was in the 90s. And I discovered yoga in that time of my life and just felt like I was like home. I was like, oh my God, I love this. Now, it wasn't at all meant to be a career. It just kind of took over. Like, it was a time when there were like 2 studios in Chicago. It was a time when I just fell in love. I fell in love with this feeling of connecting myself to these little nuanced sensations. The movement patterns just felt like they helped me enter into places inside that I never even knew existed. It ended up turning into my career, a passion and, a joy. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years I studied at the Himalayan Institute. I went and traveled through India and did trainings there. So my practice today is more breath-based, still lots of movement, but just different types of movement patterns that help people to just feel more embodied.
I haven't heard you tell that story ever. So, and what struck me is if I was going to make the introduction, I would say something like, this is my dear friend, Megan, who I feel like I've known my whole life, but really we've been close a short amount of time. And she is such a curious human being and really pushes herself to keep learning. And
I like that intro.
I could say a lot of other things about you. When I think about my stress kit, as I've been talking about this season, I think about these pillars that are important to me in being able to manage the inevitable stress that comes at me. And I've been talking about how I eat, sleep, move, think, stay connected, and breathe in no particular order of importance. But I didn't think about breath really at all and its level of importance until I read the book.
Yes. Where is it? It's back there somewhere. Yes.
It's over on my shelf too. Yeah. But yet you are the person that has helped me actually embody that and really develop some skills, attention to it, resources. It's become like a barometer to me. Mm-hmm. And I'll notice when I'm just right here, my breath is all just here.
Oh, yeah.
And I recognize there were times in my life where that's the only place I was breathing. Mm-hmm. And I now am able to sense when that's starting to happen, when this is all kind of tightening up and I need to get into my belly, I need to get into my back, I need to get my rib cage to expand. Now, I am not your most faithful student.
Well, you're doing it on your own, right?
But you have really changed the way I think about how I breathe, and how I breathe is inextricably linked to how I manage the things that I need to manage in my life. And I would love to hear you talk about why you think breath is so important. Why should anyone even be thinking about it, care about it?
Well, building on what you said, your breath reflects your mental state and creates it. So it's really important. If you can access your breath, that's number one, I think, in today's world. We have constant input, and with all the input that we have, we are losing attention span. And, the breath is a reflection of your nervous system. So your nervous system is, it's not just your brain. It's not just your brain. Your mind is nervous system, which is, if you look at a diagram of all of your nerves running through your core, through your trunk, through your limbs, to your fingers and your toes, that's your mind. So your nervous system is directing your breath, and it's your body is doing whatever your nervous system is telling it to do. So your breath, you're breathing however your nervous system is telling you to breathe based on the state you're in. And so I think it's a really powerful tool, and I've learned through the years as time has changed and being in a room of humans so often through for many years, the human has changed a lot. We are much more distracted. We are much more fragmented. This is as a whole. This isn't pointing out any person. We are much tighter mentally and physically. We hold a lot more tension everywhere, like people's facial expression. Like I've been watching this for almost 30 years, and it's a totally different experience today, teaching today. And so I think I've become so interested, because if I can help people get into their breath, you not only realize you have choice, you're not trapped, you're not like, this is my only option of being in the world. You have all this choice that opens up. You can actually change how your nervous system, you can use your breath as a gateway to shift where your nervous system is. You're supposed to be able to breathe in endless ways, not one way. We have an adaptable breath is a healthy breath. So when we learn to unleash that and really free the breath that's inside, we have all kinds of ways we can breathe. And it's supposed to be changing based on your life experience. But today, most people are living in a chronic state of fight or flight for like 95% of their day. So if you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, you don't have any choice. You're only going to be tight. Your body's going to protect itself. You're going to be breathing up here. You're going to be breathing too fast, like the old saying of the yogic saying that you're given a certain amount of breaths for your lifetime, and you can use them up very fast, or you can slow them down and stretch them out. That's huge at the forefront. But there's so many other reasons. I mean, I get really into the mechanics of breath because people don't, you don't think you can breathe wrong. But as you learned in the book, most of us are not breathing correctly because we're not using our diaphragm, our main breathing muscle, to its full range of motion. And if we aren't breathing correctly and anatomically congruous with our body, then any breath pattern, if you listen to a podcast and they tell you to do box breathing, or they tell you to do in for 4, hold for 7, if you're doing that chest breathing, it's not going to help. It's not going to give you the desired results that you are looking for, and the reason why you were listening to that podcast in the first place. So I've learned I have to help people really understand how their body's breathing, help restore their breathing mechanics, and then you can just have a blast,
As you were talking, I started taking deeper breaths, and I was actually like expanding my diaphragm and trying to pay attention to where it was, and I noticed something. And I think this is really relevant, particularly for women. In order for me to get a really big belly breath, I have to be willing to have a belly.
I love that. Oh, can every woman on the planet hear that statement? Oh, willingness. Yeah. Well, first of all, willingness is the number one key, the number one ingredient for all of this. Just being willing to explore, willing to try something new, willing to not know, willing to not have to be right or not do it right or not be perfect. And that willingness is often not there because we want to be right. We want to hold the reins. We want to win. It's just built in our design. And yes, all women have been taught to suck in their gut to look skinny and pretty. Yeah. And it's what I have to work on. That's why I have you lay over the gorgeous ball. Because step one, nobody likes it. You got to feel that you're so tense. We're holding so much tightness in our gut. And what is our gut? Our most precious, vital organs. And they're on lockdown. So we're not getting, where there's breath, there's blood. If we're not breathing down and using our diaphragm to massage our organs along with the pelvic floor, like a jellyfish moving inside of us, our organs are not getting as much blood flow. There's more stagnation. Yeah. I mean, I read a study that showed that research on the organs that have the most percentage of cancer, highest rates of cancer, get less blood. We want to flush blood through our gut and our belly. So we have to move our belly. We have to be willing to have a belly. And when we inhale, that belly expands softly. Softly is the key word. I'm not pushing my belly out. It expands softly. We have to let it go on inhale. And then exhale, it comes back in. And if you let it go out, guess what? It'll come back in more. So it actually helps you have a better muscular core. So I love when I have to go up against that with women. It's like you will have a more gorgeous core using it, breathing 20,000 times a day.
It makes me sort of sad, though, that you have to kind of spin it that way. Like, hey, if you breathe deeply, you'll look even better.
Right.
You might have a flatter stomach.
You know what? You have to meet people where they are.
Yeah, you do. You have to meet people where that you're so spot on.
So I don't have to spin it. I do not say that unless it's brought up in the room. If I have a woman that is holding tight and will not let it go, we'll talk about what the issues are. And I'll be like, what's going on? Were you taught to always suck in your gut? Yeah. When did that start? How old were you? How long ago was that? Yeah. You know, I mean, moms thought they were helping their 10-year-olds, 12-year-old, whatever. They didn't do it as a disservice, right? It's like, I
remember I was 10 years old when my aunt, I talk about this in one of the episodes of the first season of the podcast. On Saturday mornings, my dad used to drop me off at my aunt's house, and I used to get to help clean her house for fun with my cousins.
Oh, wow.
You know, that was like fun.
A blast.
Yeah. And they could come over to our house and help clean our house. You
wow.
know, we all had fun doing.
I wonder why your house is so clean.
You know, we all had fun doing chores together. But I remember my aunt used to give us like 10 cents, and we used to walk up the block to the bakery and get a donut when we were done cleaning. She suggested that I shouldn't get the donut. I was 10. Okay.
10.
And then she asked me if I had a girdle. And it was probably time for me to start wearing a girdle. Now, I was 10.
Oh my God, that is so traumatic.
If you think about a little 10-year-old's body, I mean, I've raised a few kids now. I know what 10 looks like.
My girls are 10 right now.
Yeah, and everybody has a little belly, right? Because they haven't learned that whole pelvic tilt and get your belly flat and suck it in. Their posture hasn't been fucked with, all of that, right? That moment was so, really tragic for me.
Well, yeah, that just,
I didn't even know I had a belly. And it never occurred to me that there was anything wrong with my body.
Well, that
and
just
I should try to cover it up.
Yeah. And that just makes you feel small. That does not allow you to be your full self. So today I say to people, most every class, take up space. Mm-hmm. We need to be taking up space in this world. We don't need to be shrinking ourselves. Why are we shrinking ourselves? We need to shine our light and be our full expression of ourselves, because the world needs it bad. So like, it's the same messaging. When your aunt said that and you were like, what? And now something's wrong with me. And now I shrink inside and I don't feel that's such
or I become self-conscious. I start looking at myself differently.
Oh my
I become more critical.
Yeah.
Now there's something wrong with me. I've got to fix it. I have to rein it in.
It's so bad.
Even just the function of a girdle, if you just think about it, like metaphorically, awful, so right?
Awful.
Bind her up, right? Make her small.
Oh God, yeah. I'm so sorry that happened.
Well, and there was no ill will there. I mean, that was a reflection of the way she was raised by a mother who was profoundly self-conscious.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because you work with a lot of men and women, what do you see in the men that you teach, that you work with? How does this sort of cultural context, how is it expressed in their bodies? Can you make generalizations? Maybe you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I would say there's a lot of similarities, but one thing that stands out to me with men is the four corners, right? So their four corners are the shoulders and the hips, and they go on serious lockdown. So there's a lot of joint replacement issues. I work with a lot of more men than women that need joint replacements. That's my experience. And it's not data and research, but and we hold a lot of our issues in our limbs. And if you think about the limbs, right, I see the limbs as just an extension of the core. And that when movement is led from the inside out, the limbs grow out of the core and they move in that way. But I see a lot of men, everything's outside in and the limbs are like, the shoulders and hips freeze up and then the belly pushes out. And I think, that outward push of the belly is often a puffed up chest syndrome. So it's the rib cage has elevated, not expanded, right? So an elevated rib cage makes one feel like confident, right? There's more, but the only way to breathe in that way is chest breathe. So I have to work a lot with my men on making this come in and down, letting the shoulders round forward, really getting that coming in and exhale, the exhale pattern, because they're just in this, I need to be in control. I need to be confident. I need to hold, I need people, I need to look like I know what I'm doing. And my limbs are like doing everything, not connected. Does that make any sense?
It's so powerful. And it occurs to me, we talk about body language and how important it is, but I don't know that we actually really allow ourselves to take it in. I mean, and it goes back to your sort of earlier point about we're so like screen focused. And so, but if you were really to just be present with the people you're encountering in your life and really take them in, their whole self, their eyes, their physical self. I mean, I'd never really thought about that puffed up chest. I mean, that really resonated. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that looks like. I never thought about why it's happening.
So much
and
pressure.
how, I mean, as women, we're sucking it in, we're holding it tight. It's a very defensive stance, and we feel the need to be kind of gird against, protect against. Well, men have their own set of physical challenges, their own set of challenges, and their bodies are reacting to those things too. And it might look different, but it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. In women, it ends up, now, obviously I see both sides in terms of pelvic tilt, but a lot of women with stomach sucking, the pelvis gets tucked under in a shame stance. So that's really tough to unlock. Right? We do, but that's often the case. I mean, some people go tip forward. It depends on how you come into this world with your genetics and anatomy. But that tuck under, it's like, woof. And then, so that's how they round forward, right? And men, it's much more chest oriented usually. Sometimes I've used like my full body strength on their ribs to help them understand what I'm even saying. Because words are difficult, right? Words don't always, we all hear things differently. We think we're doing something versus feeling we're doing something. So I just have to help this top lung space, which is a very small, if you like, this part of your lung up here goes all the way up to here, is the small part of the lung. And if you're only breathing with it, it's going to make you breathe a lot faster, much more, and you can be over breathing up to 300 times, literally. So like I have to help this top lung release, let them roll their shoulders forward, squeeze these ribs in, narrow them because they're stuck. Like the intercostals are stuck like this. So it's really, and I think it's totally the pressure of life that they have to always have it together. They have to carry the weight of, if it's more of a patriarchal family setup, if it's more old school, that's like everything's on their shoulders. And, pressure to be successful financially, not show their emotions, not actually be human in that regard. And I will see, 225-pound men in my room just sobbing, letting it out when they let that exhale go. When their physical structure changes, when their physical body actually goes into an exhale shape because they're actually physically exhaling with their muscles and their bones are changing, their posture, it's immediate emotion. Wow. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And they're so embarrassed. And I'm like, yes, this is the best.
Yeah. This is what your body has been begging for. Yeah.
This is what we're here for.
One thing you've really helped me see, and I bet there's people listening that don't have this awareness. I always thought breathing was about the inhale, right? Getting my belly out and moving my diaphragm, like I was a flutist. I did a lot of diaphragmatic breathing in order to be able to play, because you had to take deep breaths to be able to play long phrases. And so that resonated for me, like the diaphragmatic piece. And you also use your diaphragm to play staccato notes and to play. I mean, it was very much, that was part of my training and I took lessons for a really, really, really long time, almost into college. So
Wow.
I was kind of in, it was well groomed in me. But you helped me appreciate the value of the exhale. I never ever paid attention to the exhale. And I think there's a particular piece of wisdom in here, Megan, that I want you to help us understand. And for me, it's that buildup of the CO2.
Yeah.
And the translation for me is like, how does that help me become more resilient?
Yeah. There's a lot of the CO2 definitely comes in. That's probably the most complicated layer. So I'll start with the easiest layer.
Yeah.
The easiest
Maybe just
layer.
the value of the exhale, first of all,
Yeah.
or depriving ourselves of, that experience of holding the exhale, which you've talked about so much.
Well, really the truth is the vitality of the inhalation comes out of a complete exhale. The ability to get full lung volume, which is different than breath volume, full lung volume and expansion comes out of a complete exhale. And what is a complete exhale in the nervous system? A complete exhale in the nervous system is letting go of stress. Mm-hmm. And when the exhale is longer, it's the release of stress. It's like animals exhale and shake it out and they let go, right? Mm-hmm. We need to learn that. But if the exhale is longer than the inhale, it's what shifts us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic of rest and digest. Whereas
say that again.
Okay.
When the exhale is longer than the inhale.
And the exhale is longer than the inhale. And if we can really stretch out the length of the exhale to what feels like empty. Now, you're never going to get all the air out of the lungs. We would say empty, but you feel empty. You let it fall all the way out. It tells your body, because of the vagus nerve, that's the 10th cranial nerve, the wandering nerve that grows out of the brain down through the diaphragm, through all your organs. And it is gathering information from your body to tell the brain what state you're in. And so when you exhale, it hugs the vagus nerve because it's hugging you deep, hugging all those organs. And it sends messages up to the brain to say, oh, wow, she's good. She feels safe. She's cool. She's not stressed. We can calm her down now. We can go into rest or digest. If we just do patterned breathing without having some awareness, it may work here and there, but it won't be as consistent because you do need to retrain your body because your breath is controlled by the nervous system. So you'll have that great practice. You'll feel great in that moment. And then you'll go back and our nervous system goes back and resets where the habit body has set it, right?
And you're saying like pattern breathing, like if I do some box breathing for a period of time, or if I do some of those tricks and tools that we've been taught.
Yeah. Oh, and I love those. Don't get me wrong.
Some of the deeper awareness and work.
They have so much value, all the patterns. But the first step is simple. Like you said, it's exhale longer than the inhale if you need to calm down. Most of us, first I start there. Well, we have to make sure we're taking an inhale, right? Some people are no-halers. Some people take tiny sips of inhale. So it just depends on your starting point. But get that exhale all the way out and you won't believe the full inhale that pops up. It just comes in. It's a reflex. The inhale becomes a reflex. You don't have to try. You don't have to grasp. And as you reset this jellyfish feeling in your body, you have all kinds of choice. So as a musician, as a singer, you can do all kinds of things with your diaphragm. You can pump your diaphragm on hold after exhale into the inhale shape, into the exhale shape. There's all kinds of practice like that in yoga, on breath holds, on the abdominal vacuum or Uddiyana Bandha, on Nauli where you're moving your belly like a belly dancer. The exhale is like key for calming the nervous system. If you want to spend more time in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is actually where we're meant to be spending most of our time, we need to lengthen the exhale. We're meant to spend most of our time in rest and digest with quick hits into sympathetic. Quick hits like, I haven't seen you, Sarah, in a long time. Like yesterday, I was like, yay, Sarah. That's a quick hit of joy into the sympathetic. Or if the car in front of me is slamming on the brakes, I'm like, and I slam. thank God my body can go right into sympathetic and make me react fast, right? All these things. But they're supposed to be quick hits of sympathetic. We're not supposed to stay up there. We're supposed to be able to come back down and reset. And we're not doing that. Not only are we not doing that, but our diaphragm is not doing that. So now the recent studies are showing that what happens to our actual body, the muscles in our body, is the muscle of inspiration, our diaphragm. If listeners bring their hands to the bottom of the ribs and poke around under the ribs, like right under here, and you're poking around and wrap around, you're going to get into the fascial attachments of your diaphragm. It is a huge circle. It's like a flank steak in the middle of your body, and it separates the heart and lungs, the thoracic cavity, with the visceral organs, your abdominal cavity, pelvic abdominal cavity. And it's like, it's like the size of a Frisbee. Think of a flank steak the size of a Frisbee. And it domes down, and the ends really move and push down. The center moves a little bit, but the ends, the sides really pump. Well, what's happening when we're in a chronic sympathetic wired state, so we're in a low-grade fight or flight all the time, is that diaphragm gets stuck. It gets stuck. It's not able to relax back up into the lung field and relax. Because when we're breathing, inhale, that big muscle pushes downward on the organs, pulling air into the lungs, and it's actively engaging on inhalation. When we exhale, it's relaxing, and it's meant to relax all the way back up into the lung field, pushing air out. When we're in a habitual fast breathing, it gets stuck and it can't totally relax. So we now have no choice to relax. If the muscle can't relax, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get into that calm, blissed out state. So that's where active breathing comes in. We got to pump that diaphragm.
Yeah. I think this is so great. And I appreciate the way you made the distinctions between sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, because I'm guessing that there are people who are listening that they don't know the difference. And even that language, I think, is helpful for people to have when they're thinking about, because we all know when we're in the sympathetic, right?
Yes. Well, actually, that's not true.
No?
No, because I think it can be so habitual. People don't know until they have a panic attack, or they don't know until they pass out, or something happens. Like, some people are just so used to it and they think that's normal. So maybe I'm not saying their unconscious doesn't know, but the conscious mind is like, this is how it is. And they don't think there's anything wrong with it. I meet people like that all the time. And it takes a while. And then all of a sudden they feel a layer of gripping, because when we are in that state, the muscles grip and tense and they close in on us. And so now we don't have room to expand, and we can't expand and we can't narrow. Where this is it, instead of, right?
Yeah.
We don't have that. So everybody doesn't know. They don't know until something changes or something really rough happens, which is a bummer.
Well, it is a bummer, but I think that's there's a little bit of human nature there too, is a lot of us don't make big changes until something really rough happens.
That's true. So that's the gratitude that comes when, something, you have an accident, you have an injury, and then that allows you and pushes you to see the reality and to really feel into you.
I mean, you've told me the story about what led you into this work and how your own life experience took you deeper into the importance and understanding the importance of breath. I mean, I think it's a good story. If you're willing to share it, I think it could be really helpful to some of our listeners, because you're an expert in this area, but you're actually also a mom and a human being who knows the value of this in a very real way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I thought I knew everything about the breath, being a yoga teacher for 20 years. I thought I knew it all. I thought I knew it all. And then I am struggling getting pregnant. I am now 40 years old, and I decided to go through in vitro, which was very stressful being a yogi, because I was like, well, my body should be able to do this. I shouldn't have to take these drugs. So I already had a conflict inside. But anyway, fast forward, we are blessed being pregnant with twins after a long road. including miscarriage and the whole process of what in vitro does. So many women will relate to the story, probably most. And I get severe preeclampsia at 26 weeks. I am admitted to the hospital. I live in the hospital I'm lucky enough to keep them in my body for 5 weeks, even though the nurses are circling around me ready to call it at 27 weeks. 20 every week. They're like, are we taking these babies? They come out okay. We're in the NICU for 2 months. We get home from this. We're home for 2 months. They come home in 4.5 pounds or whatever. And I have 4.5 pound babies at home for 2 months, and one of them gets a fever. And all of a sudden, I take her into the doctor. Okay, it's her first fever. This happens. He sends us home. The next day, she has a huge growth on her neck. Huge, like a goiter. And I'm like, what do? I take her back. He's like, oh my God, I don't know. We got to go to the hospital. We go to Lurie. They think it is the lymphadenitis, inflammation of the lymph node. They treat her for that for a week, heavy doses of antibiotics and the drip on this tiny baby. It's now like day 14, and we're back in the hospital, and they finally run the right testing, and she has something called Kawasaki disease. And Kawasaki disease inflames all of the blood vessels in the body from the outside in. So your body is amazing, and it will always protect your most vital parts. So all of her blood vessels and arteries are inflaming, but it's protecting the coronary arteries in the heart. They're the last to go. Well, usually they will not swell in this disease if you catch it before day 10, but it was now day 14, and they were blown up. So her coronary arteries, they said, should be, as an analogy, the thickness of a dirt road, and hers were a 6-lane highway. The coronary arteries are the blood vessels that feed the heart. So she is at risk of having a thrombus, which is a blood clot she would drop dead just immediately. And this is possible for months. She had to go through massive treatments to reduce the inflammation. Once they get it down, the Kawasaki is gone, but she is left with a lifelong disease of coronary artery disease. She has aneurysms and inflammation in her coronaries. They told me at one point that her heart was equivalent to an 85-year-old with heart disease at 5 months. So I couldn't function. I had PTSD every time I went in the hospital. I started to feel myself looking through the lens. I mean, this is nothing I ever have felt before or imagined was possible. I knew stories of things like this happening to other people, but I literally had paranoia beyond. Anyone I saw in the hospital, I didn't trust. I had no trust in anyone. I thought they were going to kill my baby. I was.
And that's so not who you are as a person.
Right. So it was shocking to me. I would yell at them. I would freak out. I didn't trust. I said, I don't believe you. Everybody was wrong here. No one got it right. I have no reason to trust that you should do that to my child. I finally oh my God, I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know what was happening because, again, I was trying to do my pranayama techniques. So this is where I stand clear that you need to know how you're breathing before you do those techniques. They're freaking powerful. I'm doing my pranayama techniques and it's making it worse because I'm doing Kapalabhati and I'm doing yes, I'm trying to balance my breath and I'm trying to get coherent breath and I'm trying to do alternate nostril breathing, but I honestly didn't have enough breath to do those. I was I couldn't calm it down. I was so scared. And I turned everything around. I just laid down on the ground. And I was I went back to the beginning and I said, I know this. I know this. And I know I'm in a state of panic, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to use my techniques that I've relied on for so long. I know I need to lengthen my exhale, but I can't. There's like no room. I can't get it out.
Yeah.
It would exhale for like a second, and then I'd be back on the inhale, and then it would exhale for a second, and then be back on the inhale. So like I actually couldn't physically extend the exhale with my mind and intention. So I went back to a sandbag. I got the handy old sandbag. I put it on my belly. I laid on the ground. I laid on my stomach. I did small little movements. I did yoga nidra. I just did body scans and deep relaxation. I didn't try to shape my breath at all, because when I did, I got more anxious. And then I learned, and then I started doing a deep dive of research outside of the yoga community to make sense of what I've learned in the yoga community and teachings. And I studied all different, anything that resonated with me about breathing, I would just order that book. And I reshaped how I understood. And I learned what was actually physically happening in the body versus your bandhas and your pranayama technique. Now I know how to use the pranayama techniques much more appropriately for myself and my students.
I'm guessing there are people listening that are really resonating to having a moment in their lives, and maybe they're having it right now, where they feel that sense of panic, that sense of things being out of control, of things they can't manage, and they're not yogis.
Yeah. They don't have that toolbox. They may have others, but
yeah. I think it'd be really helpful to share, one or two thoughts on kind of where to begin. I mean, you're so far down the road of all the knowledge and the tools, but where do you recommend that people begin if they want to really encounter their breath and really start to see its healing power?
I love that question. And the simplicity of where to begin is the most beautiful thing. I think what I've come to is really keep it simple, because everything grows from there. Like the simplicity of lying down and getting on the horizontal, getting connected with the earth, being on the ground. So because when we take our bodies out of gravity, we can relax. When people sit in meditation in that state that I just described, you can't fully relax. You can meditate, but oftentimes people are just thinking, in my experience, right? I'm meditating, unless you have a real good skill but when you're in that kind of state, lying down, doing body scans, there's so many resources out there right now and apps and learning yoga nidra. So one of my biggest go-tos for the beginning. I mean, now this is hard for people that are really in the sympathetic, because just to be still can be really hard. So maybe it's 5 minutes to start, where you lay on the ground. And if you can find a guided body relaxation, I can give some suggestions after this that we can send links. And you just follow it. Let your mind connect to your body and to wherever you feel your breath. So I'll tell people, just find your breath. Let your mind merge and link to your breath. So that's what yoga means. Union, to yoke, to merge. So let's do the yoga. Let's yoke, let's merge our mind, our presence with our body breathing. Your body is being breathed at every moment until it's not. So where do you feel your breath? In your body. Where? Find it and be with it. I don't care how your body's breathing. It can breathe however it wants to breathe. Just be with it and follow it. And your mind starts to learn how to follow the movement. And it's moving. It's like a wind moving through you. Or like, I actually link it more to like watery flow, right? It's like, how water will move into space wherever there's room. If there's like, an opening, water will flow into it. So your body, when you create space, when there's room, prana will flow into it. So your breath is the conduit, the mover of prana, and it will just start to allow your body to release. So I tell people, just start simply like that. Find it, be with it. Try to find some outside guide where you like the voice of a body scan, of a yoga nidra, and feel the difference in your sensation. And then start to feel like, can I do some practices where I can exhale more? Oftentimes when there's the resistance that I'd had physically where I couldn't get the exhale out, you have to squeeze it out, right? You have to actually use more muscle. So you can use muscle, but one of the simplest ways is to add resistance in your mouth. So even though we want to be nose breathing, that's a whole nother podcast, nose breathing and carbon dioxide. Yep. That's another podcast. Even though we want to be nose breathing all the time, even when we're sleeping, obviously I can't nose breathe when I'm talking the whole time, but I use the mouth as resistance to help slow it down. So I'd use a shushing breath in through the nose. And it stretches it out, you start to feel some musculature down. Or humming is amazing. It sounds like some people are like, really? Is it that? It's miraculous. Start humming. It starts to send vibration and resonance that you can feel. Because when you're thinking, you're not feeling. So when you can link your mind to your breath, you're in your body. And when you're in your body, you can collaborate with it to calm down, to be present. When you're present, you're always more calm. Presence is a pathway to being calm. And when we're in those states, you're not present. I was not present in those. I was scanning for danger. I was scanning for threat. I feel like I had those like red, in like the movement in like detective shows, and it's like, dee, dee, dee. My eyes were like red lights scanning for threat and danger because I could not handle the thought of my baby dying. And by the way, she didn't. She's thriving. She's 10 and healthy. And I am beyond grateful. And
yes.
Yeah. But, at that time, I had no idea. I was living every moment as if she could die at any second. And that's what they were telling me could happen.
I appreciate, though, the way you are able to break it down, because what you did say is if you can get your body on the ground,
yeah,
right, you have a better chance at getting into it. Mm-hmm. That's not overcomplicating things. I think the wellness culture that we live in, and those of us that think a lot about our own wellness, there's plenty of opportunity to overcomplicate just about everything. I've joked about the 67 point routine, and it's got to be done at the right time with the sun has to be just right, and the phases of the moon, and all the other, right? We've made this so complicated for people, and you're saying, if you could just get your body on the ground and allow your mind to connect with your breath,
yes,
you have a really solid chance of finding some peace and some stillness and some calm.
It's interesting. Getting in your body.
You're getting in your body. As we've been talking, I didn't have to think about doing some of the things that you were saying, right? I started to shush. I started to hum. When you were talking about the diaphragm and pulling in your, like the rib cage, my body just naturally did that, and all the things that so our natural state, our natural inclination is to want to heal.
Yes.
To want to breathe deeply, to want to have ease. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the simple things.
Yeah.
Allowing it to be simple. What if we allowed it to be simple? You don't have to hire a breathwork coach.
I now say dare to be simple. Dare to be simple, dare to move slowly, dare to let it be small. Because of exactly what you're saying. It's such a culture of more. The wellness culture is piling on the craziest list of things that you have to do and eat and all the things. And really, the simplicity is just be present. Like actually be in your body in harmony with nature, because we are part of nature. We, as much as we're forgetting it, human beings are part of the earth. And we are in disharmony. And when we are not with our breath, when we are reverse breathing and our diaphragm is stuck, we're not in harmony and we're not in congruency with the design of our body, of our nature. And we're basically fighting ourselves the whole time. So we have to get out of our own way, help release some of this actual gripping and tension by just getting on the ground And again, linking mind to whatever is happening in the body. So if we're so busy trying to stop what's happening because we don't like it. When we don't like a sensation and we don't like an emotion, we don't like an interaction that we had with someone, what do? Hey, we don't want to stay in it. Yeah. We want to jump ship. Yeah. And then we usually go on the judgment and the blame game, and we point fingers outside, and the whole story happens. And I mean, that's just the nature of protection.
Or we seek to distract ourselves from it.
Or we seek to distract. We will distract.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of courage. That's why I say dare to be simple, because in that moment, when those emotions come up, we will actually work as hard as possible to not feel. And we could do that for years. But if we catch that happening in the moment and we let ourselves feel whatever agony, whatever frustration, whatever irritation, whatever is happening, and we don't fight it and we just actually open ourselves up to letting the feeling move through us, it will actually move through us instead of get lodged into us, right? We really, the body holds on to everything. And another thing for people to remember and contemplate is the body doesn't have a choice about being in the moment. The body has to experience everything, where the mind can leave the moment all the time, but your body is stuck there experiencing whatever is happening to you. So this is the real issue with any victims of abuse, physical abuse, any type of abuse, is that the body has to go through it and will always remember it. The mind can leave. I mean, thankfully it can leave, but the memory is in the tissue. So we have to go through the body. Carving out time in your life for the actual healing is an embodied experience. It is not a skill set. And that's really important. So the thing is when you haven't, like you said earlier, you were talking about how much you've learned from me or took from my teaching. And then you were like, I'm not, the most reliable student. But this is the thing about that is your body will never forget. So I think that's what you're referring to is like, I didn't forget those moments. Your mind might forget, but your body will always remember those shifts, even if you don't. And it always remembers everything. So it's like, okay, I need to realize there is so much intelligence in these tissues, inside, in every cell, in my skin, in my fascia, in my muscles, in my nerves. Why don't I bow to that intelligence instead of just what I can collect by reading books and what other people have learned? Let's bow to the intelligence that's actually in my body. And it's crazy what will happen.
I'm having a little moment and I'm a little bit on the verge of tears here, my friend.
Oh, good. That's my goal.
I want to share something that's like this little powerful awareness that I'm just having. And I've told you this story before, but you and I met when I was in my 20s and I came to your yoga class a couple times, maybe two. Mm-hmm. The first time I bought a 10 pass because I wanted to be a yogi. Mm-hmm. And I probably came one additional time. And I remember this was probably 5 or 6 years after my cancer diagnosis. I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. I could hardly stand myself. The idea of putting on yoga clothes and going to a studio was terrible. I was so overweight and I was not taking good care of myself. But more than that, I couldn't be in my body. It was the scariest thing ever because I was so just all of the trauma of being sick and everything I went through and all the fear I was still carrying. And there you were in the front of the class, quite possibly the most objectively beautiful human being I had ever seen in my entire life, running this class, and by cultural standards, Megan, you had it all together, right? The skinny, blonde, beautiful woman, yogi,
looking
so peaceful and put together. And I remember literally just doing everything I possibly could not to run out of the room.
Yeah.
I was comparing myself to everyone in it.
I would have hated me so much. Meanwhile, I was probably going through my divorce, totally coping, right? I was in my 20s, just like, what the hell am I doing? So
Right.
interesting, right?
We were, and we've talked
Right.
about this. We were
Yeah.
both so in that same
Yeah.
place, but just different reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward a couple years later. I mean, 20, whatever, like 30 years later,
Yeah.
something, 25 years later, and I'm on your breathwork retreat,
Yeah.
and I need a minute. I need a
And you're
minute with
like,
you, and I just needed to tell you
yeah,
that story, and I needed to tell you how much being with
that was
you
so good.
as a 50-year-old woman
Oh,
was a moment of true transformation, because I came to that retreat seeking embodiment, living in my body, finding myself in my body, feeling at home in my body, ready to be in it, like
yes. Thank
loving
God for
it, like all the
50.
things, right? And I remember you saying to me, like, oh my God, this is amazing, and thank you. And we were crying and all the good things. And
Yes.
then you were
We were
like,
sitting on the lounge chairs.
yes. And you said, can we just be friends?
Hmm. Can we just be friends now? Forget all the rest.
Forget all the rest. This path of coming home into ourselves
Yes. It's everything.
is everything. And if we aren't breathing, it's impossible.
If we're not breathing consciously, because thank God we're
Well,
always
yeah,
breathing
we're always breathing. Thank
as
you.
long as we're alive. But, I love that that is a distinction, because breathing consciously gives you more choice to live consciously. And I think people think, if I'm breathing, I'm good. If you're either breathing or you're not. But it's like, wow, that is so limited. And you look at ancient cultures and you look at all healing techniques, all different. It's all centered around breath. Breath is the center of healing. I mean, wherever you look, and there's all different styles. And I think that if someone is curious about breathing before going to like this really active breathing where you're doing holotropic breathing, tumo breathing, and you're going to be breathing actively for 40 minutes. Now, I love that, but learn how you're breathing. Do an inner discovery of where you feel your body breathing. Learn how to breathe well, down and low and wide in your body. Free up your diaphragm. Go slow. I encourage slow. I think those techniques are amazing, but I think you could do them for a shorter period of time. A lot of things out there is like, oh, it's a whole hour and people are hyperventilating, and it can be a lot first off. So just explore what's actually happening in your body, and then those practices are incredible.
I think it would be really helpful to link some resources
Yeah, for
in
sure.
these show notes. So I'd love for you to share with us some of your favorite resources.
Yes.
But I'd also like you to talk about, your own personal library of your work, your classes, and where people can find you, because Megan, you are uniquely gifted as a teacher.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just like very local in north suburbs of Chicago. So I'm in, Evanston, Wilmette area. I have a website, breathemdk.com, where I have a small library of some online work. But you will find a lot of work, because I also am like a yogi at heart. I do a lot of longer practices that allow your physical body to release the gripping and tension. So if you're interested in exploring those kind of practices, a lot of work on the ground, a lot of pumping, rocking, fascial techniques. I have 6-week courses in your core. I have 6-week courses in intro to pranayama. I have, 16, 90-minute classes. And if you wanted to catch me live, it'd be in Wilmette at Yoga View or at my own studio.
This has been so fun.
So fun.
And I really, selfishly, you helped me reconnect to things that I knew, but I wasn't really paying attention to. And I'm going to breathe differently today, because of the conversation that we've just had. And I hope that everybody listening and watching is able to do a little bit of the same thing.
Well, I think you're right, is that sometimes, we think we have to be doing, but honestly, just, opening your ears taking it in and listening, your body starts to respond. You may feel as you're listening, like you're not even trying, and your body's like listening. And it's like, oh, it starts changing.
It's like, I want that. I want that back.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
want that. We want less effort. Yeah. So Sarah, you are a gift. This podcast is amazing. I'm so honored to be a guest on it. And I'm so impressed with your work, all your vulnerability, and your willingness to share your amazing life story and all the wisdom that you've gathered through your lifetime, and the gift of being in your 50s, right?
Such a gift. I know, we were just talking about that last night.
It's the best. You're just like, whatever. People don't like it. This is what I'm like back, especially after knowing each other in our 20s, all the nervous energy of like, are they going to like me, or that goes away.
If you don't like it, lump it.
Oh, well, yeah. So good.
Oh, Thank you. All right. We're going to link all of this stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much.